All righty. Good morning, internet. I'm pumped to hang with you because, like, literally, I talk about all the time. I said building community is just like being in a band. Let's give the people what they want, man. Who are you? I say, what do you do always? But like, you have like 16 lives. You're like a cat. But if you just want to give kind of a holistic background about yourself.
It's hard for me to talk about myself at this point because I've done so freaking much, but
I know.
yeah, I'm David McCarter. I recently moved to the Austin, Texas area. So, hey, everybody from Texas or California, where I used to live, which I wish I was still there. So, I've been a software engineer for a really long time. We were just talking, off the screen that I've been interviewing, software engineers since my very first job. And I started a user group and the first year I was a software engineer too. So I've done that. I go all over the world speaking at conferences. I've written more books than I can even remember these days. And I just released in the last 6 months. I released 3 books. So I'm working on another one. So,
Are you serious?
yeah.
I don't even like reading, and you're out here writing multiple books. That is crazy.
I do so much writing these days because a number of years ago, I really wanted to start trying to get my experience on paper
Yeah.
for longevity. Right.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
or in videos and things like that. So I've really been writing more than ever in my life right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. A lot to unpack here. I think the first thing that I just want to get to right off the bat is interviewing. I mean, you've literally wrote a book on technical interviewing. I just want to kick it off super high level. Just some thoughts, some wisdom that you can impart on the viewers this morning. And then we'll just kind of start to narrow in on some things.
For interviewing, like I said, I started my very first job, and I don't tell that story too much, so I'll tell it really quick. And the people who ran the company realized I have a really good perception about people, and I do. And so when they came and asked me, hey, come sit in on this interview, and I go, this is my first job. Why do you want me to sit in on an interview? And they go, well, we want you to sit there. Don't say anything. Just tell us what you think of that person afterwards. So that was my first one. But now I worked at a company and I basically interviewed almost every single .NET software engineer that came into the company while I worked there for its 4.5 years. So I've done it all. I've been the hiring manager. I have been interviewed a million times. I've interviewed hundreds of software engineers. And you asked for the number one thing that people miss or don't pay attention to, which is exactly what my technical interview book is all about. And that's preparation. If you really want that job, you have to prepare a lot.
I mean, I feel like there's absolutely zero excuse now to not be prepped because of AI. I mean, literally, AI prepped our conversation, and I'm already going off script. But that's not the point. The point is like, I feel like there's like no excuse anymore. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's no excuse. At this point in my life, I use AI every single day, whether it's coding or writing or generating images. Like all the images in my book now, every single one of them I've generated with AI. The book cover is generated with AI. Everything. And so my thing, and this is the way I always do it, especially in my resume, is I write it and then I just have AI help me make it sound better. Even in coding right now, AI is just a tool you use. You don't let it do everything. So it's better at maybe fixing things that's already written and things like that, but doing it from scratch, it's still not there yet to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Let me ask you this. Let's go back to interviewing real quick. I don't want to go down to the AI rabbit hole. I think there's a little fatigue in general with AI right now, which I totally get. Obviously, prepared is good, but what else do people miss? How else can people get prepared?
When they go for the interview,
Yeah.
a lot of software engineers think that interviews are a one-way street, right? You're just there to answer questions, right? Or be tested or whatever, right? But I have a whole multiple chapters in my book that's wrapped around the questions you should ask them, because you also need to interview them to see if you're going to like it there for a long period of time, right? I did a survey and most software engineers don't stay more than 5 years in a job and they move on. So one of the things is you need to ask them specific questions. And not only do I say this because a lot of people say this, but I've been burned too many times about accepting a job. And I get there sometimes on the first day and I realize I made a mistake. And that's because I wasn't asking the right questions. Unfortunately, most interviews, they don't give you a lot of time for that. So you have to really pick the 2 or 3 maybe that you're going to ask during the interview. But that is a big thing. Super important.
Yeah. So I don't think the interviewee drives the conversation enough. I remember interviewing at the company I was at before Torque, and I vividly remember not even getting to the meat and potatoes of the actual role until like interview 3 because it's just kind of like high level. What do you do? What can you do? Here's what we do. And then there's like kind of the meat and potatoes, and it takes forever. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of sit there and they're like, oh, I'm good. Like, we'll just answer questions. So I'm in agreement with you on that.
One other point I wanted to make about AI really quick. And, there's a lot of people going around saying AI is going to replace software engineers. And even my daughter-in-law told me that. She goes, a year from now, you're not going to have a job. And I'm here to tell you that's not true by any stretch of the imagination. But what is true, what I'm kind of realizing now is because of AI, we need more senior software engineers to look at what the AI is doing. So I really think AI is going to affect the beginners because we're not going to need as many of them anymore. So the problem therein is, okay, well, if we don't need as many beginners, software engineers, what happens when the senior software engineers retire? So how do we bring up that next generation?
I mean, listen, this was my talk at All Things AI in Raleigh last month. There is more need for software engineers right now than there has been in a long time. We know that is true, but we also know that AI is arguably taking a lot of junior opportunities. Here is my thought, and I'm interested in your thought as a senior engineer. What do I do if I'm junior? And I said, you need to be building and you need to actually be developing essentially not a business per se, but like you need to really just be doing it on your own because you need to be able to separate yourself from the AI. I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
Yes, that's definitely true. And that gets back to how I started as a junior. So before I was even a software engineer, I was writing programs and releasing them. That's how I learned. But what I was teaching myself in that process, basically what you just said, I was teaching myself the entire software development lifecycle. And the other thing is most companies don't give us any time to learn new stuff. It's work, 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 no learning. So we have to learn on our own, either by going to conferences, going to extension classes at universities, things like that. But the number one thing that software engineers need to do, whether they're just starting, is to write programs constantly on your own and release them. And release them not with making big money because it's probably not going to happen, but release it as so you can gain experience because that's exactly how I got jobs in the beginning. So I used that experience as this one company. We couldn't hire any beginners because they were just really bad at interviewing and we couldn't get out of them their analytical thinking. And so I came up with a new thing at that company and it totally turned around software engineers we wanted, completely turned it around. We did that system and we got to hire everybody we needed to.
I think there needs to be more self-awareness when it comes to the job search. And here's the reason why I say that. Jason and I, we were at Data Tune together in Nashville. One thing that we did is we review resumes at our booth. I've always been big on giving back and helping the community. And we were through like 15 resumes. And we finally asked a person, we were like, would you interview you based off this? You know what that person said? What are we doing? He said no. So if you are writing your resume and you look at your resume and you ask yourself, would I call myself, and you answer your own self saying no, fix it. And I think another thing too, I think people get in interviews and they have a very arrogant thing, like this mindset. Like, listen, if you show up and you don't present yourself and you're not asking questions and you're not engaged and you're not prepared, you're not going to get the job. And it's not AI's fault. There needs to be more self-awareness.
One of the tricks I tell in my book is what you should do to make your resume look better is good recruiters will fix your resume for you. They'll use spell check, which developers seem to forget to do, but ask for it back. And so I did that so many times. I would have them fix it. I'd have them give me the document back. I'd fix up mine, keep going back and forth until my resume looked pretty good. Now we can use AI to help us. That's really how I did it. I used recruiters to make me look better.
I say this all the time. David, you and I are like kindred spirits here. I always tell people don't pay a resume writer unless they're a recruiter. Like, recruiters are the ones that know how to write the resumes.
They should. That's one of their jobs. They should know how to do that.
Now, I probably in my career now have probably looked at 50,000 resumes. I know what pops and I know what doesn't. And again, we say this stuff all the time. If you do the things that we talk about on this show, you're going to be in the top 1%. You're going to be way better than anyone else. Talk about community. You've been a Microsoft MVP. Can you just talk about Torque? We're community first jobs platform. Community is at the core of what we do. And I always love hearing community and kind of networking stories from my guests. So if you want to kind of dive into just the power of community in your career.
The power community, I've written about this too. You can go on my website, is why I'm here. Without community, I wouldn't have been like this. I wouldn't travel the world. I wouldn't become a senior lead software engineer very early in my career. None of that would have happened if I didn't start a user group. I helped start that user group at the time. There's like 5 of us, and it was a Visual Basic user group. That's how long ago it was. At the time, I had terrible fear of speaking in front of people. Even in high school, I would do everything I can not to get in front of the class and read my report or whatever. And that carried on. I'd rather die basically than get in front of people. But my first year of being a software engineer, I can still picture this in my head. Something told me I need to learn how to talk because it's going to become important in the future. And I was going through this local San Diego computer magazine, and the guy who I call the father of the user group had an ad in there. And I go, okay, I have to start forcing myself to get in front of people, to get over this dang fear, because something told me I need it in the future. What I didn't know at the time, just how powerful community is and how much that changed my career. I would say most everything I got in this career, including jobs, was because I worked in the community and still do. I mean, that's part of being a Microsoft MVP.
Oh, this is a whole other conversation. David, you are just branching. Yeah, I think behaviors have changed. I've said it's not, and I want to get to Ron's statement here. And it's so fascinating he said these words because this is the way I was taught as a recruiter when I started. So I tell a story all the time about my dad and the job search. And he asked me, he's like, hey, how do I find a job? He was like, because the last time I did this, the internet didn't exist. And I was like, hey, every day, coffee, lunch, virtual conversation with somebody. That's it. So he would go on coffees, he would go on lunches, he would text me, hey, this went well, this didn't go well. Guess how he found his job? He messaged one of his former bosses on LinkedIn. Now, some people are like, well, he didn't get it because of the lunch. But the thing is, it's momentum. It's all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Networking is the best way to find a job. I mean, hands down, to me, that's the best way. And I've got more jobs than I can handle just because I was speaking or doing whatever without even applying.
In my opinion, get involved in an online community. Go to an in-person meetup once a month. If there's no in-person in the area, start one. Talk to a few people a week. Talk to 3 to 5 new people. Get involved in an online Discord or Slack. Go to an in-person meetup once a month. I think that's the formula.
Talking to people is where you learn the most, if you ask me. And I read about this too. When I go to conferences, besides the speaking part, I rarely go to sessions because especially now they're online anyway. But I spend as much time possible networking and talking to people and getting to know people, and because that is way more valuable than sessions, if you ask me. Especially with remote work is really tough. And these are the things we need to overcome is how do we do this on a regular basis now that most things are remote. But the power of speaking in front of people to me is not doing it remotely, is in person. In person is way different than speaking to nobody or whatever on the internet.
Well, and it's like I interviewed Aaron Francis a few weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, he goes, if you get into this in-person ecosystem, you could be like, man, I don't, kind of looking, kind of not. Like you can't put that online. So like the dynamic shift when you're in person. Now, I'll tell you this, managing a community team that's always out and networking is an interesting thing in and of itself. That's a whole other conversation for another day. So as we wrap up here, last 15 minutes, I got some rapid fire questions, but I wanted to see, David, if there's anything percolating in your mind that we haven't gotten to yet that you wanted to share as we've been talking.
Well, since we have at least one person that's older in this career online right now, I don't know about everybody else, but the tech industry doesn't really reward older people. It kind of pushes them out. I knew that early on, but I never realized just how bad it is. The ageism in software engineering is just really mind-blowing, if you ask me. I never knew it was going to be this bad. So, one of the things that veteran software engineers to me, or anybody with more than 20 years experience, that experience or those number of years actually hurt you when you're over 20 years. And a lot of people don't talk about that. It just weeds people out and they go to different careers. I've known people have gone to, writing books and things like that as their career. But it's something that you really need to look at if you've been in this thing for over 20 years.
Yeah. What else? Anything else before we get into rapid fire questions?
You asked me about timeless skills. So one of the things I talk about all the time on the skills you need to learn is focus on how to build software, not the frameworks, because frameworks and languages come and go. I can rattle off things that for a long time the things that don't even exist anymore. But the things that really stay with you is like object-oriented programming, architecture, leadership, mentorship, those kind of things is, really drives your career, not the languages, not the framework. So those are the things you need to focus on. Those are the books you need to buy because they'll be worth it for decades if you buy those kind of books.
David, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as, again, an expert in the field. I have said AI has put an emphasis on actually solving business problems and not just writing code. Code's commoditized now. I can write code, not that I know what's going on, but I could write code. How do you solve the business problems?
Yeah, the big fear about AI is going to take our jobs. And yes, that's going to happen. But to me, AI is just a tool, right? And I actually relate AI to code. Coding is not our main job. And I have a meme that says, if you're coding all day, you're doing it wrong. And that's completely true. Unfortunately, too many companies don't realize this. If you're not banging on the keyboard, you're not doing anything. But that's only a minimal part of our job. So for a long time now, I want to write less code. The less code I write, the more I can focus on architecture, delivering applications that people really like and things like that. So that's what AI hopefully will allow us to do. Because no matter where I'm out in the world, I always look at how other people use applications. And I can tell you, almost every doctor or nurse or whatever I've asked, do you like using that program you're using? And every time they say no. And I even see programs getting worse, not better in the last 10 or 15 years. So my hope, if AI is used correctly, it's going to free up our time to do those kind of things better.
All right, listen, David, final wrap up. Where can people connect with you?
.nettips.com.
.nettips.com.
.nettips.com. There's my Blue Sky link. I don't really use Twitter anymore, but .nettips.com. I'm constantly writing. I minimally have a new article out every single week, if not more. So you can always come and learn. And I write about all kinds of things, including career and recruiting and resumes and things like that, because I did that for so long. And I think, like we were talking about, people just are terrible at it. So I'm constantly writing about things like that. I'm also looking for new ideas. So anybody wants to contact me, hey, Dave, we think you should write an article like this. Please let me know. I would totally do it. I'm not afraid to write anything or say anything. Even though I'm Microsoft MVP, I complain about Microsoft constantly. I never sugarcoat things. I tell you honestly exactly how it's going to go.
All right, listen, y'all have a good one, and we'll see y'all very, very soon. Peace.